Guys, what's going on? My name is Ryan. I trade ETFs and I like to make videos on the technical analysis that I'm seeing here. Today we're going to look at Bitcoin, actually marked by the ticker BTC USD. This is my first installment of analyzing the chart for Bitcoin just because so many people have been asking me to do analysis on Bitcoin. And I took a look at the chart and there's some fairly interesting things going on here. I am bullish in the short to medium term, I guess you would say. In the longer term chart, I'm seeing some fairly significant warning signs as far as the regular three-stage bubble of a market, and we're going to go over that in a second. But who's really investing in Bitcoin for the long term, right? I'm just kidding. I'm sure plenty of you guys are. So let's go to the three stages of a market. So we basically have the stealth phase, which is when smart money comes in, and we see this slow uptrend here. It's fairly sideways, and then we start to take off, and institutional buyers comes in. This is the awareness phase. And we have our first major sell-off into this bear trap, and then there's the manic phase, there's the mania phase, and there's just a basically parabolic run all the way up. Now we're starting to see this run all the way up, and this is why, as a long-term investor, I would be somewhat wary as to how high and how fast price has been moving here for Bitcoin, ignoring fundamental analysis aside, just looking at the typical stages of a market. So how does this chart relate to what we're seeing in Bitcoin? Well, we're starting to see our phase one over here, the accumulation phase. We have this run up here. We have phase two, the markup phase, which is where we start to take off, and we have our first real bearish price action here. And then I think that we may be in phase three, which is the mania phase, where price basically goes parabolic, and you can just see kind of how closely this fits with the the daily chart of Bitcoin here. We've had a basically parabolic run upwards, and as somebody who invests their money, I would be fairly wary of this type of price pattern. But I like to look at everything on different time frames, and this is the daily time frame, and I have a feeling that a lot of people are doing swing trades and scalps on Bitcoin because the price moves are so dramatic every single day that it makes very good profit opportunities. And I'm seeing two interesting patterns that will play out here, on which we can take a good look at here on the daily. I'm actually seeing three potential patterns, but two of them I'm fairly more confident on. And two of them are bullish patterns, and one of them is a bearish pattern. So let's just cover the bearish pattern real quick. It is a head and shoulders. We have this as our left shoulder here. We come down, this would be our head, and this would be our right shoulder. This right here, this black line, would be our neckline. If we broke below this, this would confirm the head and shoulders, and this would be a topping pattern, and we might see a potential reversal in price for Bitcoin. The second pattern that I'm seeing is this pennant, marked by this black ABCDE, and this is the top of the resistance line here for the pennant, and this is the bottom support line for the pennant. We come down, hit our first area of resistance, come down, set our first area of support. This is A, B, C, D, and we're approaching E. And the third pattern that I'm seeing is this ascending triangle. It's a longer pattern. It starts down here. We have our touch, and then we rise up and we set our first area of resistance, and we come down and set our A, and then the proposed price action from here is that we would come up, set our B on this top line. This is fairly early on in the ascending triangle, but I like to talk about everything that I'm seeing and what might happen and proposed potential price paths that are actually plausible and supported by technical analysis here. So if this is our A right here, marked by the blue, we'd come down, set our A, we would break out into B, C, D, and E. E would mark the end of this pattern, and we would expect it break out below the previous highs here. Notice how the pennant here, this pennant is a bullish pennant because price rises up into it, but it's interesting to note that this pennant might be true, and it would also work for the ascending triangle. So if this pennant breaks out here and moves higher, we might get rejected at B, in which case the larger pattern, which is the ascending triangle, would take over at that point, and we would see price move into this ascending triangle formation here. But at the moment, this resistance line up here has only been tested once, and so I'm not overly confident on my analysis of this ascending triangle until price breaks out of this pennant and hits B and gets rejected here and moves down to C. If this pennant is the overall price pattern and it blows right past B and continues to go up much higher, then we would know that the pennant was the true formation. But as far as technical analysis and patterns go, the only patterns that have this support line rising up like this and getting supported along the way is the pennant, head and shoulders, and ascending triangle. Another thing I wanted to point out here is our indicators. I've got the RSI right here, I've got my slow stochastic, and I've got my CCI, the commodity channel index, down here. I'm seeing some hidden bullish divergences, which is actually what is leading me to come up with these bullish price patterns here and rejecting the head and shoulders possibility at the moment. Another factor is that our RSI is remaining over 50 on the daily, which is very important. If it breaks below the 50 RSI, we could see a longer term reversal, but we have not had the RSI break down below this for many months now. As far as the hidden bull divergences go, I have two of them, and usually you only get one on one indicator, but we have two of them taking place here, which is very positive for bullish future price action here in Bitcoin, and that's when our indicator makes lower lows each time. So in our slow stochastic, we have a low, lower low, lower low, and it looks like we're heading down into what might be the lower low, or the lowest low. And the same thing here for our CCI, we have a low, lower low, lower low, and lower low. While price makes this high, or this low, and then higher low, and then higher low, and then higher low. This is the definition of a hidden bull divergence. If you have not heard of it before, let's just take a look at the cheat sheet that I go off of basically. So a regular divergence is when price is making higher highs and the indicator is making lower highs. This is for the bearish situation. We would expect a reversal because our indicator is pointing downwards. Bullish regular divergence is when price makes lower lows and our indicator makes higher lows. In the hidden divergence, let's say for the bullish situation, we have price making higher lows consecutively, like we see in our Bitcoin chart, and our indicator is making lower lows. So I have this bubble up here which kind of explains the psychology behind the hidden divergence. So I'm just going to read off here. The underlying power in the hidden divergence rests on the fact that corrective moves within a larger trend will, at some point, need to catapult themselves back to appropriate market direction. From a fundamental perspective, this often happens because most of the trend-based profit-taking has run its course, and the market events that created the trend in the first place still create an accurate representation of the asset's appropriate market valuation. From a technical perspective, which is what I usually look at, these occurrences show that the indicator reading has generated a larger trend pullback than prices themselves. The indicator will need to revert to its mean in order to stabilize. The necessity for mean reversion often creates a significant snapback, and the added momentum that accompanies these moves is usually enough to bring additional higher highs in an uptrend or lower lows in a downtrend. So that is the psychology behind the hidden divergence, and it's a well-documented and well-followed trend strategy. And the fact that we have two of them here on the chart leads me to believe that we have not seen our highest high for Bitcoin yet. So going from the daily chart here to the half-hour chart, I have some more technical analysis. I will try to fill in the 2-hour and hour time frames with Bitcoin, but this is my first week at analyzing it, and there's not a ton to go on as far as the three patterns that I predicted go so far. One of them needs to take hold and decide which is going to be the winner before I can do any more analysis. But here on the 15-minute, given what I said earlier in my video, this is my predicted price path for Bitcoin next week. So when I analyzed it earlier on in the week, I saw this kind of wedge pattern going on here. We had our A, B, C, false breakdown, D, and we came back, tried to get back into the trend, and this would be our E. And after that, it was an all-out sell. And what's also nice to see is that this shows our previous pennant that we have. We have B, C, D, and then we came down and touched our E here, which is quite nice to see. So my prediction as far as next week goes is that we will probably roll over. We've been rejected off of this channel here twice now, once, twice, and I think that this might be the third time before we set a higher low for the first time. And we'll see a small pop, and this will equate to my theorized buy zone down here. This would be a good entry price here for Bitcoin, and I think that we'll see some sort of a double bottom or higher low situation going on here before breaking out of this current resistance line here, and then we'll get to this long-term resistance line, and I expect us to flag out sideways before finally penetrating this long-term resistance line and moving higher. And I'm going to leave this here. This has been my first technical analysis on Bitcoin. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe for weekly and intra-weekly updates on all sectors of the market. Wish you the best of luck in trading next week. Hopefully this gives you some direction as to what might be a good buy or entry point for Bitcoin. And happy 4th of July, everyone.